Hi, Karen. You're muted.
Hi, Jeane.
Hi. Hi, Mary. Mary, you're
Yeah.
muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Jeane. I just found it.
Good. Yeah.
You'd think I'd been using Zoom long enough to figure this out, but I was trying to multiplex here.
It's complicated.
Mhm. Well, we have 32 people signed up, so
Good.
I'm excited.
Thank you for doing
Yes.
that.
Well, it just took you doing them. Sending me your information and we got it out there, and the different Adams County and also Anthem came through.
Where is Adams County?
You know, I forget where I think they were meeting at the library, and I'm not sure. I think they can't meet there anymore. So both them and us are having issues about where we meet.
I mean, where is the county in the state?
Oh, Adams. Oh, it's east of here.
Oh,
So it's like Brighton and Thornton.
right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I can't remember where they're meeting at. Well, the problem has been solved because we're doing it on Zoom.
Yeah. All right. I have to know where it is.
What a timely thing, but regretful at the same time. And Mary and Ann, are you from Anthem?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
And I just recently joined the Anthem Genealogy Club. So I think the first meeting I was at, they announced Jeane's first presentation for you. I had to miss that one, so I'm anxious for tonight's.
We recorded it.
Oh, wonderful.
I have to say, I don't know if it's only going to be available to members or not. Sorry, I have to think. I have to ask the board. I've been recording a lot of the recordings are only good. We can only post for 25 days. That's what we ask the people that give us presentations.
Mm-hmm.
Now Jeane said we could just have it available, but we're debating now whether we make that available to everybody, or we try to give our members something.
Right. I know lots of the organizations have the same dilemma, because we've all gone to Zoom over this time, and that makes it so easy to actually record it. But yeah, like I used to belong to a photography club up in Loveland at my old house. That was still a long drive. From here, it's a very long drive. So I'm very happy that they're still doing it on Zoom.
Yes. It's really nice. We're looking at going hybrid. So, but we have things to figure out before we do that.
Right.
So,
right.
Is that Diane Barber who's joined us?
I don't know.
she's muted.
She's muted, yeah.
And this is Ann Chalmers, and I am also a member of the Anthem Genealogy Club since about the beginning of the year.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Yes, this is me, Jeane.
Diane, oh, how wonderful to have you here.
Yeah, I wasn't going to miss this.
All right.
So glad to be here. Thank you.
Did you make the first one? Did you make the first one? I don't remember,
Yeah.
Diane.
Yeah.
It's convalescing right now.
Yeah, I'm in the hospital. So
dealing with her.
Yeah. Tell everybody, Jean, that I say thank you for their good wishes.
Okay, I
A
will.
lot of cards, and I appreciate it.
How much longer will you be in the hospital, Diane?
2 weeks, and then I can go home. I'm learning how to walk again, which is a lot easier at 2 than it is at my age. And my hands are totally numb, so I can't use the computer. So
Oh, wow.
they don't know when or if it's going to get better. So
Genealogist who can't use her hands. Wow.
because they're numb,
Yeah.
they're numb. They're
What a
just,
nightmare.
they don't, I can't feel anything with them. So when I hit the key, I usually hit the wrong one. And I can't feel the pressure. So I can't hit it hard enough sometimes to get it to take. So, but we're working on it 3 hours a day. I exercise. So
Okay.
we're working on it. There's another Anthem Ranch person here. Barb Short. Hi, Barb.
Steve?
Barbara
This one.
Larson, are you related to Robert?
I am not, and neither is my husband.
Oh, okay. Are you from, now Barbara Swartz is from Anthem. Barbara Larson, are you from Anthem too?
He's muted.
I am from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Whoa.
How did you
Oh,
find out about us?
it's late for me, 9 o'clock at night.
Oh.
How did I find out about you? Oh, I must have been trolling somewhere. Perhaps Conference Keeper? Do you advertise on Conference Keeper?
You know, I don't, we just set up our or redid our website. So he probably, I don't know how, whatever Kirk did, he's done a lot of things to make them available to people who Google. So that was great.
I don't remember.
But we're from Colorado. Broomfield, Colorado.
Whereabouts? I'm sorry.
Broomfield, Colorado. It's Metro Denver area.
I see. My brother's in the Springs.
Oh, cool.
Where are you from in Florida?
Fort Lauderdale,
Oh, how nice.
hot and steamy.
Yeah.
And
Well-
anyways, I was wondering if I can, when more people come on, if I can advertise in chat a free webinar from my local society coming up soon.
Is this Barbara Larson still talking?
Yes.
Oh, yes, sure, absolutely.
Okay. It's free, you know,
Yes.
and it's going to be about the census.
Ooh.
19
The
well,
1950?
censuses, it's going to be about censuses plural,
Oh,
but I'm sure they'll touch on the 50s as well.
it is just great how we can all connect from all over with Zoom. I just think it's awesome.
Agreed.
And Steve Porter, where are you from?
I'm in Broomfield, Colorado as well.
Oh, are you one of our members?
Excuse me?
Are you a Broomfield Genealogy member?
No, I'm just with the Anthem Ranch Genealogy.
Okay, okay, I was trying to figure out. All right. Welcome all of you from Anthem Ranch. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, are you doing yours on Zoom always now? Or are you in Anthem doing it in person? Your meetings?
I don't know, Barbara or Diane, if you want to speak to that, but I could just say that lately it's been a lot of Zoom, except for this last meeting just yesterday, where the instructor insisted it be in person.
Oh,
So
And we've been fortunate, you know, Kirk has done a really good job of getting us some speakers. Some of them have been from out of state and some from in-state. So it was been a good variety.
Yeah, I have a friend here from James Welton. James, I forgot what state you're from.
Michigan,
Oh, that's right. Duh, Michigan, car country. Good.
your alma mater.
Yeah.
That's my alma mater too.
Thank you all for putting your names in here. I'm trying to get a list for Jeane. She wanted a list, so, and for us too.
Darren from Anthem and Omar from Anthem. Welcome.
Shout out to all the Anthem people.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad to be able to join you via Zoom.
Yeah. You're in Arizona or someplace, or where is it?
Yes, I'm in Sedona.
Whoa.
Well, we had 32 people sign up, but you never get as many people as they say to sign in. And lots of times they wait because they're eating dinner or something. So sometimes they're just late, but I'm sure we'll get more. But we'll start in a few minutes. And if they're late, that's their problem.
Okay. That's their problem. Okay.
Deb Bumberry, hi. Deb is from Broomfield Genealogy. So is Rachel.
That's Linda Drake. Welcome.
So did anybody get a little rain today? I did too, yes.
Cold.
It is cold. My son was born on the first snow in 1984. So I always gauge that day, which was September 28th. So we're overdue a snowstorm.
Stop.
Let's see, I'm 16 here. Oh, and what I was going to mention, you're going to mention it, Jeane. Did you want to talk about the Colorado Council of Genealogy DNA SIG that they're having?
Yeah. So there's a group called the Colorado Council of Genealogy Societies, which is a group of all the genealogy societies throughout Colorado. And there's a proposal that there be a Northern Colorado DNA SIG. And SIG stands for interest group, special interest group. And so it would be people who are in various societies coming together over this one topic. And there's going to be kind of a initial discussion about it tomorrow at 3 o'clock, given by Glenn York of the, is he Longmont, or is he Latimer, the Latimer Genealogy Society? And at the end, I'll give you his email address if you're interested in being part of that discussion. But a SIG can be quite powerful because you get people all over adding things, and it doesn't matter really where you're from, as we see from our Florida guest here today and other things.
And Kirk also put a link up on our webpage. So you can go to that link. It's under, what is it under, Kirk? It's under SIG.
It's on the SIG page.
Yeah, there's a SIG page. under events, I think. I don't know.
No, it's on the SIG page.
Oh, there's a SIG. Okay.
Maybe we should go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I am so glad you could all make it. Today we have Jeane Berry here, and she's going to be talking about Genealogy 102, using ancestry DNA testing in your genealogy research. So Jeane is a former educator who has been working on her family genealogy for over 30 years. She was inspired by her grandfather, an engineer who gave copies of his impressive genealogy work to each of his children a few years before he died in the 1960s. Jeane was inspired to expand his work and to prove the pedigree he presented. In the last 10 years, she has been exploring the world of DNA for genealogy. She has had her DNA and some of her family's DNA tested with all of the major DNA testing companies, including Ancestry, 23andMe, Family Tree Maker, and Living DNA. She has experience in autosomal results as well as mitochondrial and Y-DNA results. She started off skeptically, wondering why in the world anyone would want to deal with living test-taking cousins. After all, wasn't genealogy all about our mostly deceased ancestors? However, she has learned the joy of connecting that comes from presenting on the, comes with exploring the DNA, her DNA matches. She enjoys talking to people eager to understand their DNA results and has been presenting on the topic for the last 7 years to various genealogy groups for the past 7 years, both in California and Colorado.
Thank you, Karen.
Welcome, Jeane. Jeane.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at the Zoom screen and just want to point out down at the bottom, we've got a chat. And already we've had a posting by our guest from Florida, Barbara, on the chat, right? Didn't we? About a seminar she's got. And that is a place where you could put questions in the chat. I would prefer though, because sometimes I see that when a question goes into chat, then suddenly this question jumps up right in the middle of the PowerPoint and is kind of distracting. So I'd prefer to have questions reserved to the end of this presentation. So we have 20 people. I'm glad you're all here. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to do my best. And let's see. So I'm going to go to what's called shared screen, see if I can't get a presentation up.
I have not put the handout in chat yet. I'm trying to figure that out. I thought I knew how. So you can keep looking for the handout. It's one page and I'll put it in chat.
Okay, so that goodie is yet to come. So now you should be able to see the screen. Is that true?
Indeed.
Good. And I think most of you are muted. That would be helpful rather than having dogs and barking and conversations and TV. So that would be great. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Genetic Genealogy 102. This is a it's a continuation of what we did last month. Let's see if I can. Just to remind you, last month in September, we talked about Y-DNA and mitochondrial. So we're not going to talk about those this time. And they're complex enough. Today, we're going to be looking closer at autosomal DNA results and the tools that you can use in Ancestry. And we'll look specifically at ethnicity, matches, and through lines. And a lot of you, I assume, are very versed in all these, but it doesn't hurt to go over these things. And you may find some new features as we go along in this discussion, because Ancestry is always changing. And Diane knows this. You go to do a presentation on Ancestry, and lo and behold, all of your screenshots have to be redone, right? So anyhow, we're going to look at these DNA tools in Ancestry and and make the point that Ancestry is a gateway to more goodies. So also to remind you, there are 4 kinds of DNA tests. There's the Y-DNA test for men, just for men. There's mitochondrial. That's a kind of DNA that gets passed down through our mother's line. And then there's autosomal, and that's what we're dealing with today. It crosses the gender barrier. Men and women can both take it. And it's fun. And it's, I think $99 is a bargain for all the fun you have. I call out a 4th kind, it's kind of testing, but really it's autosomal testing of the X chromosome. And it's special, and I'm not going to be talking about it here today because there's too much other stuff to talk, but perhaps we could talk about this another time. So the first type of test, the Y-DNA, is just for men. You can see the men's line right here. Y-DNA gets passed from father to son, grandfather, follows the direct line. It goes into the deep origins of your ancestry. And when the only place, well, one of the only places you can get a Y-DNA test is family tree DNA. And you buy the test according to how much granularity you want, how many markers, and the price increases. This 37 marker test is probably about $159, but the Y-DNA test is probably $500. So there's a variety there. And it's always possible you're going to find out that you had what's called a non-paternal event among your ancestors on your father's line. And that means that somebody other than, for example, a Porter, for the Porter line, somehow had well, I'm not going to say it's a mishap, but it's a non-paternal event. Well, not the expected ancestor. So what do women do if they want to have the Y results for certain surnames? They look for a proxy test taker, a father, an uncle, a brother, and in my case, cousin Jim. Here's my first cousin Jim, who took the Y-DNA test for me at my request. He didn't care about DNA, but he happily took the test. Second type of DNA is mitochondrial, goes up the mother's side and gets passed from mothers and sons to their next. The problem is that the Y-DNA results, the DNA itself changes so slowly, and the names change every generation, that it's difficult to make sense of your results because you're looking at people who are way far back. The third type is autosomal DNA, comes from both your men and women in your tree, all lines of your tree, they're all coming down to you, the test taker. Typically, your parents each give you 50% of your DNA. And these tests are pretty good back to about the 8th generation. They get a little weak around 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th as to whether or not DNA from these ancestors back here will survive down to be present in your DNA. So I'll tell you a little bit about the testing companies. The autosomal testing companies are Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, 23andMe, and MyHeritage. You could pay money to all these companies and get a test that the results will be pretty similar in each of them, or you could be smart and do some leveraging. This graph over here shows you the sale of these tests, and this green line here, that's Ancestry. Ancestry has sold about 20 million tests in its course of history of selling tests. 23andMe is the next largest. MyHeritage is third, and these other ones come in at the bottom. So if you want to have the greatest possibility of finding cousins, you would start with Ancestry. So my recommendation is that you get your DNA data in all of them through testing or uploading. And by DNA data, I'm not talking about a handful of spit. I'm talking about you've been tested through a testing company, they've taken your DNA and they've created a file, a text file that you can download and it contains 4 letters repeated in all kinds of ways. So that text file can be uploaded to these other testing companies for free. That's the kicker. Okay, I want to show you that when you sit down to take a look at your result, you get your email from Ancestry and you say, congratulations, your results are in. When you want to look at your DNA stuff, this is the navigation ribbon. You'll be going back to a lot and you hone in on this DNA name for, and voila, you get all the things that are important. You get your result summary, you get your DNA story, DNA matches, through lines, and you can buy more tests, of course. So this will become your friend, this little DNA thing up here. So hopefully no one in this group will say that tomorrow, I don't know how to even find my DNA. It's right here on that black ribbon at the very beginning of your time on your Ancestry session. Okay, and what you get when you click on that DNA results summary, you're going to get the 3 things we're going to talk about today. One is DNA story, DNA matches, and through lines. And we're going to go through each one of these and so that you're very familiar with them. Okay, the first one is the DNA story, and you can see right away they give you a little synopsis of your quote ethnicity estimate. Remember, it's an estimate. And for me, they estimate that my ancestor came pretty much from the British Isles, England, Northwestern Europe, Scotland. And so, and that is consistent with the other testing companies relative to my DNA. Yours will be a different story, but that's what I got. Okay. The big excitement about ethnicity estimates that people get a buzz on is that you have a sense of identity. You know, maybe you grew up with parents who said, "Oh, Sonny, you're Scottish, and you came from a long line of Scottish clansmen," and you have this "where did my people come from" feeling. What's our family lore? And it's kind of fun to think, you know, to get an identity like that you maybe didn't know all the time. And besides, it brings in lots of Ancestry customers. Ancestry's been very heavy on the advertising of this ethnicity thing. I don't know if you remember the ad where there was a guy who he thought he was, I don't know whether he thought he was German, and then he took the test and lo and behold, he finds out that his ethnicity points to Scotland. And it's a big shock, but it's helpful to get science behind your assertions. But remember, this is an estimate and it keeps changing as the data changes. So in the news to the Ancestry customers in the last month or so has been the idea that your ethnicity estimate was going to change on a certain date. It was, I think it was September 19th. So there was this great hoopla. And I looked at my ethnicity estimate before it changed, and they had assigned me 4 different regions. No surprise, England and Northwest Europe, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. There's the group that I'm very familiar with. And then September 19th rolled around and voila, Ancestry says, here it is, your new estimate. And it still has England, Northwest Europe, Scotland, Ireland, but now it's got a little bit of Germanic Europe. So German, that's kind of a surprise to me because I've never known my family tree to have any German people, but you know, there's lots I don't know. And then here's a little Norway. So here's this alleged big switch that occurred last month. And I looked back in my files to see what's happened to my ethnicity estimate over the years. And I'm sorry, I'm using my data and not your data, but this is what I have access to. But you can see in 2013, over here on the right, they assigned 75% of my ethnicity to the British Isles. Okay, that's kind of what we've heard about. and 20% to Scandinavian. So they were heavier on the Scandinavian than any other time on these ethnicity estimates. This is 2013 to 2021. So, 8 years or so. And you can see that over the years, things changed every time they did a ta-da, your ethnicity estimate is different. But in general, it's got a lot to do with the fact they changed the labels, the names. Sometimes they called it England and Northwest Europe. Sometimes they said, oh, just Great Britain. Sometimes they pulled Scotland out. So all of this is really the British Isles, all of this stuff. But it is interesting that for a little bit, they thought there was a little Scandinavian in there. And just recently, there's this Germanic. And it'll be interesting to hear from you maybe whether or not your ethnicity changed greatly in this last revision. So Ancestry has been behind the scenes revising its estimates. And that means that it's been going around the world, finding populations of people who, for example, might represent, are you typically Irish? Did your generations of ancestors, have they been in Ireland for at least 4 generations? And they'll collect samples from people like that. They'll collect them from other regions. And their map is getting more detailed. They now have 1,500 regions. And they have more people per region. So that's how your ethnicity changes just a little bit. So I went to Ancestry to see what they had to say about ethnicity. And they use this term reference panel. What are they referring you to? What are they basing this on? They compare your DNA to a reference panel made up of DNA from groups of people who have deep roots. I told you that. They look at our DNA, your customer's DNA, and assign each section of us 1,001 sections of your DNA to a region. And then they come up with these percentages. So that's what they're doing behind the scenes. It's probably a huge project if they have 20 million people whose ethnicity they're revising every time they get a new batch of people for reference as panelists. So the other thing in the DNA story that I want to talk about is that Ancestry does a great job of talking to you, giving you information about the places they think your ancestors came from, your ethnic origins. And in this case, here's a panel about England and Northwest Europe. It goes on and on for pages, and you can read all about Northwest Europe or the British Isles. But they also give you another kicker, which is just really great. And it's got to do with what they call DNA communities. They say that people who have come from where your DNA is showing you that you came from have settled in these areas. And this is one of the areas for me, it's called the Delmarva Peninsula. And the Delmarva Peninsula is out here on the edge of the United States, the eastern part of the United States. It's a peninsula made up of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia a little bit. So, and I do indeed have a lot of ancestors from this place. And it just boggles my mind that Ancestry is so smart it could figure out that so many of these ancestors came from that area. It also points out some of my matches names who also come from that area. So that could be very useful. This is a closer look of my, quote, communities where my early ancestors came from. And I know the first group of my ancestors went to New Hampshire and Maine, 1630. That's the immigrant Berry ancestor. Here's the Delmarva Peninsula. And then another group went to New York. So it's kind of exciting. See, I'm just suggesting you go back and look at your DNA story more carefully, because it's got neat stuff about what Ancestry is deducing from your DNA, not from your tree so much. Okay, and here again, another gets into the history. You can click on these different years of increments of 25 and find out what was going on in the Shenandoah Valley. That's so cool, a little history tailored around My Genealogy. Another cool thing that this DNA story section tells you about is where do some of your DNA matches live? And according to this, I have 80,000 and some DNA matches on Ancestry. Now that's a lot, 80,000. 408 of those people have actually gone to their profile and indicated where they live. And so these 408 are showing up here. And so if you want to be part of this deal, go to your profile and add your residence, like Colorado or Florida, and where you are. And, you know, you'll, for your cousins who are looking for people who might be around in certain areas, you'll show up. And it's kind of fun because if you ever could take a road trip or something and you want to meet somebody from a particular area, Pennsylvania, maybe who is a distant cousin, this is a way to find them. And if you hone in on those little dots, you can get their name. And I know Nancy. I've gone and visited her in Maine, and she knows all about my ancestors. So that's a cool thing that's under the My Story icon of your DNA stuff. So we just talked about this. Now we're going to talk about DNA matches. That's where the meat is. And according to this, I have over 1,000 fourth cousins or closer. It shows me new pictures every day. So how many matches do you have at Ancestry? And that's kind of fun to find out. Well, there's this little dashboard up here, and you can click on what's called shared DNA. Click. And it's telling me I have over 80,000 matches on shared DNA. If I wanted to know how many fourth cousins are closer, I'd click here, and this one would untoggle, and I have 2,174. Now, there are some genetic genealogists who believe they want to spend all their time on their closest cousins, and so it'd be important for them to be able to filter out who are the close cousins as opposed to who are the rest of the 75,000 or whatever. And look, the biggest group by all is this set of distant cousins, 78. But you can even customize this as to who are my cousins whom I match DNA with at the 6 centimorgan level. You can do that. So if you're a person who has a lot of matches on Ancestry, why might that be? And why might it be that somebody else doesn't have so many matches? Well, typically, your ancestors were early immigrants in America. Like they came in the 1600s or the 1500s or the 1700s or whatever. They had a lot of children, and their descendants have done a lot of testing. In Ancestry's Krista Cohen, who's a guru at Ancestry, tells us that the average amount of DNA matches on Ancestry per customer is 55,000. So it might be something just to keep track of. You know, remember to click the share DNA thing. So I just want to show you what a typical match looks like, a match person on your match page. Here's one right here. This is my oldest daughter. She shows up at the top of my list because she shares the most DNA with me of anybody else who's tested in the Ancestry world. She shares 3,481 centimorgans. And that's about half of the amount of centimorgans of DNA that I have, because her other half is what she got from her father. This is telling me that she's got a family tree. And for those customers who are interested in delving into their matches trees, it's nice to know right away, does this person have a tree or not? And 3,700 people in a tree, that's a pretty hefty tree. There's a little note here that I put in that says that she matches me on both sides, my mother's side and my father's side. And then there are filters you can apply. Filters like what's called unviewed, and we'll talk about that. Common ancestors, whether or not you've messaged her and who else you messaged. I can put notes into this deal. I can find out about the tree, as I told you. the groups, and search is real important. So this is packed full of capability that I just hope by the end of this that you'll realize and just get excited about. So here's a sample page of more matches. And I went down and I said, okay, let's grab a page just to show the audience a bunch of second cousins. And I didn't know they were second cousins when I started out. But if we look, here's a Teresa Hagman. And you can see that Ancestry says that, well, we think she's somewhere in the first to second range because she has 358 centimorgans. Well, what's a centimorgan is how you measure the amount of DNA. She doesn't have a tree like most of the people on your DNA matches. Many, well, maybe I shouldn't say most, many do not have trees. They asked me if I recognize them. I could say yes or no. And I've written a note to myself after I looked at her stuff that she's on my paternal side. And I repeated that she matches me at 358 centimorgans, and she's a first cousin once removed. And we'll get into more about how to get to that stuff. Here's another second cousin. This one is maternal. It's on my mother's side. And one thing to look at, because we'll talk about this too, is that I've put a purple dot on all these matches that are from my father's side. And I put a yellow dot on the matches that are from my mother's. So that someday, if I'm going through my matches fast and I say, I want to find somebody on my mother's side who's a third cousin, I'll just look over on that right side for the yellow dot. Here's a Kara Jordan. She's got a public tree and she's paternal. So you can see there's a relationship estimate in all of these. Ancestry saying second, third cousin, second, third cousins. There are notes to myself, and there's information about whether they have a tree or not. So again, there's a lot of stuff here. So Ancestry comes up with, here's your centimorgan count, and we think it's a first to second cousin. And they might say that, but one of the other testing companies might say something different. They might take that amount of centimorgans and say, well, this is a third cousin. You might have a different algorithm on how they interpret it. So that's interesting to watch. And Ancestry believes that some of the low matches that appeared on our match lists a couple of years ago were too low, that they were kind of garbage. And so it's got this algorithm to flush out things that Ancestry doesn't find so useful. There are some genealogists who have been in a debate with Ancestry as to whether those things were useful or not. And that's been an interesting debate to see. In any event, the match is listed in centimorgans. And the centimorgan can represent a variety of relationships. Like I said, second to third cousin. You'll kind of want to figure out, well, what is this person? Is it a second cousin, or is it a second cousin once removed? Or is it a third cousin? And you can sit there and quandary about this, but you could also use a third-party tool that I'll mention again later, like the Centimorgan Project or the DNA Painter, where you just put the Centimorgan number into the software and it pops up with what are the likely scenarios of the kind of relationship it is. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So you get this range of relationships. Here was one attached to a person who was a close family or a first cousin. It's pretty close. Okay, and you quandary about it. But here's the screen that comes about from this thing called Centimorgan Project, where you can actually put in what are the centimorgan numbers that you learned from Ancestry, the Ancestry match of 154. And it'll pop up with the probable relationships that the 154 could be. And the probability is 54% of all these possibilities. It's going to be that this person is a half cousin, or a second cousin once removed, or a half first cousin twice removed. So again, there's intelligence here that you have to apply by looking at these possibilities to think, well, for one thing, about age. If you're looking at a match of a individual and the person has got a picture of a very young person, and you look at, well, could this match be a half great aunt or uncle? Well, probably not, because a great aunt or uncle is going to be much older than you. So that kind of common sense helps you wade your way through that, so that you can take a stab at what relationship you think your match person is. Okay, another functions on the DNA matches. This is the search function, and I've circled it here. It comes about by hitting this little magnifying glass here, and the search function comes up. And I have in my family the name Stillwell, and so I put it in there, Stillwell, under search, and voila, boom, I got over 100 matches that had the surname Stillwell in their trees. All these people had Stillwell. So I have 100 people I can play with, and I can look at their trees. And I know they all have trees because the title of this film is Surname in the Matches Tree. So they all have trees. Some of them are more robust than the other. But here's a 600 person tree. Here's a 60,000 person tree. My gosh. And then I can find out if they know more about my Stillwell than I do. I mean, probably I've come to a brick wall with my Stillwells, and I want to know who are the ancestors beyond the brick wall. So I want to start looking at their trees. They match me by DNA, and they have my surname of interest in their tree. So it's exciting. Okay, I'll show you another function. And that is there's this blue dot that appears on all the matches over on the left side, not to be confused with the other blue dot that was on the right side. This blue dot is for any match that I've never looked at. So Ancestry is helping me wade through these 80,000 matches I've got. And so I could take a look at whom haven't I looked at by clicking up here where it says unviewed. I go click, and it comes up with the highest ranking match that I haven't looked at yet. And these are all in the 25, 24 centimorgan range, the fourth cousin range. And that's because I've looked at all the other matches. You know, I've been at this for a while, so I've looked at all my first cousins, second cousins, and pretty much have identified what side of my family they're on. But when I come home from the office, let's say, and just want to sit down and do something mindless, well, I could do Sudoku or turn on the news. But one of the things I like to do, it's kind of silly, is to look at, okay, who comes up in the unviewed matches, and can I at least assign them to father or mother? And so, for example, I'll show you how I do this. The first one that came up on this particular day when I made this screenshot was Terry Strom. I don't know Terry, but he's a 4th to 6th cousin. He and I share 25 centimorgans, which is a goodly amount, but he has no tree, and I don't recognize it. So I click on his name, click, click. There he is. I clicked on the match, and I get this little screen. Again, it just tells me Ancestry can't find a common ancestor. Terry hasn't built a searchable tree. So things look kind of grim. However, he kind of looks like me and we have the same hairdo, but I don't think that that's genealogically significant. Well, maybe they're looking like each other. So I clicked on him on the shared matches. Let's see, did I show you that before? Here, down here, shared matches. I clicked on, that is the most powerful tool in the DNA matches. You're going to live on shared matches if you get into this in the big time. Anyhow, the shared matches with Terry that first come up are all these ladies. And I know they're ladies because their icon is pink. The first one is my sister. And I know she matches him, but she matches my mother and my father, as do I. So she's not of any use in helping to discriminate who Terry is. But here comes a Linda Strom, and I'll bet you that's his sister. And what comes up is that I've already done a note on Linda Strom. I did a note to say that Linda is from my paternal side, on the Barry side, the father side of my father. She matches at 31 centimorgans, and she matches on one segment. And I knew that by going through this process of using shared matches. There's also a Lynn Bryant. I've also made a note about her. She's on the paternal Barry side. There's another match on the paternal Barry side. So to me, how do I relate with this male Strom? Well, all the evidence points to I match him, he matches me, and we both have shared matches on all these people who are from my father's side. So I can, with assurances, go put blue dots on these. So shared matches, get it to be your friend. So I assign a colored dot, which is what I just told you. And Ancestry has this wonderful feature, so hidden over here, called Add and Edit Groups. And you can create a custom group. They give you 24 colored dots. So it's kind of fun, it's like coloring. And you can name these dots whatever you want, but I wanted to name, this is the dark blue purple dot. This is my great-grandfather Barry and his great-grandmother wife, or my great-grandmother wife. In other words, it's my father's side. And I had set this up, and you might want to play with this, and you can set it up and you can unset it and set it back up if you think you screwed it up. So I assigned this dot to him by putting a check mark here. So over here in his list on the matches, there's the purple dot. I've written he's in the paternal side. And voila, so I know something about him. I know he's on my father's side. I don't know much else, but the colored clustering is a lot of fun. So just to tell you a little bit about the matches, I told you I have 80,000 matches at Ancestry. Well, I'm on a lot of databases. I'm on MyHeritage, Family Tree, GEDmatch, Living DNA, Jeane. In total, I have 105,000 matches. 105,000 on all these different websites. You know, why would anybody want to do that? Well, because the cousin you're looking for may not be in the biggest pond. It may be in the little pond that's down the road. And little ponds are things like, well, Living DNA, 23andMe. So to me, it's worth it to have my DNA, raw DNA, uploaded to these other companies. And besides, it was free with the exception of 23andMe. So that's kind of neat. And besides, even more, there's a Ginsu knife. There are other neat functions that these other websites have. Like a couple of them have what's called a chromosome browser, where you can find out exactly where on what chromosome of the 23 pairs of chromosomes does your piece of DNA that matches that other cousin, what chromosome is it on? You could say, oh, it's on the 4th chromosome. And that'll tell you more stuff that we cannot talk about today, but another day. Okay, under DNA matches, there's also something called DNA discoveries. And you find that over here when you put your tree, this is your tree, my tree, in a pedigree fashion, meaning it's facing to your left. And up pops this little double helix of the DNA. And it'll give you this DNA discovery, what do I want to call it? Dashboard. There it is, dashboard. You can toggle these things on and off. And this is just telling Ancestry, how do you want your data to look? Do you want through lines, icons to be on people in your family tree? Do you want possible DNA matches to show up in your family tree? Or if you actually know somebody in your family tree is connected to you through DNA, do you want this little blue icon with a little check mark on it? So it brings up a question, but I just wanted you to know where to find this. It brings up a question. What are you using your DNA tree, your family tree for? Do you just have your ancestors in it? You know, and anybody you're descended from? Or have you put in like aunts and uncles, collateral people? And even to go further, do you want your DNA matches in your tree? As I told you, I have 80,000 matches. So if I went through my matches and figured out who they were and et cetera, and I put them in my tree would be exponentially huge. I personally don't know if I want that, but my jury is still out on how to use these three little things and whether or not they could really help me. But maybe some of you will have experience that says, oh yeah, this is great. So these toggle things, you can turn it on or off. This is the one that shows you putting your match here. So I tried putting a match in a tree. Gerald Lamb down here is a second cousin. I know he's on my father's side. I know he and I match at 231 centimorgans. That's a good amount. Okay, so I know he matches. And so I went through that toggle system and I got a little symbol put on my family tree where his name is, where Gerald Lamb is. So here's this that says he's in the tree and he's in my matches. So it gives you a little bit abbreviated information that could be helpful. And as I said, I'm still working on that. Okay, I want to go back and reiterate about shared matches being one of the most powerful tools in Ancestry. It helps you find clusters of matches. So it's one thing for me to match let's say David Probert, I match him, but it's another thing if I match him and I also match all these other people that he matches. So all 10 of us match each other and match the same, well, we just match each other. It's like one little happy family. It's a cluster. And you have to match over 20 centimorgans. And you can assume there's a common ancestor or someone related to a common ancestor within that cluster. So it's powerful. Let's just say you had a spreadsheet where you knew who these 20 people were and you knew what their family trees were. You'd start looking for where is the common ancestor couple. So here's David Probert. He was one of the first matches I ever encountered back 8 years ago. So using shared matches to David Probert, I got this list. Here's Teresa Hagman, Gerald Lamb, all these people. They've all been assigned a blue dot. So I know that David Probert and I and all these other people were all related to this Berry clan, which originated out of Maine that I was telling you about. And it's so cool. And I'm going to be looking, I know now who my great grandfather, E.M. Berry and Susan Cartland, that they are the common ancestor for all these people. Well, I had this idea about clustering a long time ago. When I first started getting into DNA at 10 years, I just thought some of you might think this is amusing. I got into kind of a kindergarten mode and I had my family tree printed out in a fan chart, which is a really slick thing to have in your den or place where you work on genealogy. But then I started putting stickers on. people who matched me through these common ancestors. And these are my early DNA matches. And I had stickers coming everywhere all over that room. You know, it was so much fun to find them. And I realized very quickly, my DNA is telling me a lot more about my father's side than it is about my mother's side. And I'll just say that my mother comes from a line of people who only had one child. And you get several generations like that. And then part of this line is from Ireland. And some of us know about the records in Ireland are not so great. So what I've put in my tree about my Irish ancestor is puny. And I'm not getting much out of the DNA, but I probably have some matches from those people, but I haven't been able to harness that power of ancestry because I haven't given enough on my mother's side. But anyhow, my father's side was going berserk. A couple other ways this clustering has been occurring in the genealogy world. Ancestry used to have something called DNA circles. Well, now they're called DNA through lines. It's pretty much the same thing. And we'll talk about that in a bit. And then there was a lady who came up with a method to separate out your matches into columns, hopefully 4 columns that would be your 4 grandparents. And she's doing it through shared matches. And she did it with pencils, colored pencils and graph paper. I remember going to a DNA SIG group and everybody was sitting around and we were all coloring like mad. It was so much fun. So this idea of clustering has caught fire among the genealogy community, and different technologies are being thrown at it. And one of the most fun is called genetic affairs, and it's automated clustering. And this guy Breckler in 2009 came up with a way for people to put their DNA file in his program for free. Everything, all this stuff is largely, well, this kind of stuff is largely free. And all these little dots represent a match to me. This is that berry match. It's the biggest one I've got, but these are other matches from other common ancestors that I have and these people have. And you can, if you have it live, you can click on it and you'll get a name and how many centimorgans you match them. And you can start looking at their trees. So this genetic affairs, we had a heyday with it, we meaning genealogists. It was so much fun. And then all of a sudden Ancestry says, no, you can't download the ancestry data into this tool. And they thought it had something to do with privacy or whatever. But it was with a collective sigh of disappointment that genealogists sort of let go of this great new thing. But I suspect we're going to see it again in some other way. In fact, we have seen it because if you have data over in MyHeritage, you can run a cluster tool over there. So quick, upload your stuff to MyHeritage and start playing with a cluster tool. Okay, last I'm going to talk about through lines, which, as I said before, is the successor to DNA circles. And through lines is just a beautiful thing to look at. It's like looking at a yearbook. And this is my first page of through lines. And right away, there's my father and my mother. And it just kind of brings me back to being riveted. And, you know, why am I doing all this? But these are actual people. They're not centimorgans. They're real people. And they loved each other. And, you know, so I can wax poetic here. But anyhow, this is the first page. It shows you who the ancestors are. These are paternal grandparents. And then we get to great grandparents. And I have supplied pictures, obviously. So those are from my files. If I don't have a picture, we're going to see a template of a person. And I just want to tell you that I went through all my through lines, my pages of through lines, to see, did they have them all? Did Ancestry have them all? And they had the 2 parents, they had 4 grandparents, 8 grandparents, 16 great grandparents, 32. But get into the 4th and 5th level great grandparents, they didn't have all of my ancestors. Well, that must be because I haven't given them enough information about those people. But anyhow, there's enough to play here. So it's just kind of interesting to sort of take a survey of your own of what have you got for through lines. And I'll show you what a sample through line graphic. So I clicked on May Irene Stillwell. May Irene. That's this lady up here. She's a photographer at the beginning of the century, of the beginning of the 1900s, living in Sturgis, South Dakota, professional photographer. Look at that picture, is even beautiful. Anyhow, so I clicked on her. And this is what it came up with through lines. And it's telling me what's the DNA related to May Irene Stillwell. It gave me a little part of a family tree. Here she is. And here's my father Donald. And here I am. And this is telling me through lines that I have 12 DNA matches through my father that represent a common ancestor here, May Irene Stillwell and her husband. 12 matches on this line. But also, Ancestry has figured out that Charles is the brother of Donald. And that's true. And then there are 3 DNA matches there. So in total, there are 15 DNA matches that are linked to May and Irene Stillwell. 3 of them from Charles' family, and 12 from mine. Well, why are there so many from mine? That's because, you know, I keep telling my kids to get tested, and I have 4 kids, and I get their grandkids, their kids tested. So there's this proliferation of matches that have to do with me and my tenacity. But I didn't have anything to do with Charles and his children's DNA matches. So you can see that the DNA connection goes back to the common ancestor of May Irene Stillwell here. Doesn't go any higher up. So 15 okay, 3 from my uncles. So there are no, and the other thing is that my grandmother, May Stillwell, she had 4 kids. Well, 2 of them are not even here. And that's because no one from those 2 branches is a test taker. That's what we deduce from this. Nobody's a test taker, so they're not showing up in the through lines of the simple example. We'll look at some other examples. I scrolled down further, and suddenly here's a person in bright chartreuse. It's a 3rd great grandmother. And Ancestry is telling me she's a potential ancestor. Now that's pretty exciting to think Ancestry is giving me a name, Magdalena Lautzenheiser. Wow. You know, that sounds a little bit like German, doesn't it? Lautzenheiser. Maybe Ancestry was right about the ethnicity, that there's a little German in there. So I'm hopeful, you know, but it takes more evaluation. And that's the big lesson about through lines, is it takes evaluation. So in any event, Magdalena is married to Samuel Barnes, apparently, or there's a connection there. All right, so I wanted to investigate. I don't want to just take Magdalena and put her in my family tree. No, 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 no. So what do I know about the Barneses? So this is a generation earlier than Magdalena. These are 2 tombstones I came across in Pennsylvania when I was driving my daughter to college, the University of Michigan, about a decade ago. I was driving across and I said, I think I have ancestors who lived in Pennsylvania. I think I'll stop and find the oldest cemetery. And I started looking through the cemetery records, and it was like a eureka moment to find that my Barnes family had died here. Cemetery records told me who they were, etc. This lady is Irish, so I don't know much about her at all, regrettably. But Samuel Barnes, I could find out things about him. I could find census records for him. I found a patent application for a brick making apparatus. So that was exciting. So I know he's there. And there's Jeane again. Here's their 2 nice tombstones. This whole place was full of people they're related to and whom I'm related to, other family members. And I'll show you, this has been a brick wall and it still remains a brick wall. Magdalena didn't solve anything. Here is Samuel, the bricklayer, and his wife, and they're in their cemetery in Pennsylvania. And here's the mother of Samuel, is allegedly Magdalena. She's allegedly here, and her husband. So it's a brick wall, though. I haven't put it in. I haven't got any proof. So I pulled up Samuel Barnes and found out what matches there were that were related to him or that must have come through him. And I found 12 DNA matches from my mother's side and one from this is also my mother's side, from her sister, Aunt Jeane, whom I'm named after. One match here. So all 13 of these matches, my 12 and my cousin over here, Jeane, go back to a most common ancestor, Helen Bentley, here. I don't go any further back, so it's not I'm not getting any info further back. But at least I know that these ancestry recognizes the relationship here. So I want to evaluate this potential ancestor for Magdalena. And ancestry tells me Magdalena Lautzenheiser may be the mother of Samuel Barnes, the older one. Below is the sum for, here's the information they use to find that out. Do they have trees linked to DNA matches? No, zero trees baked linking Lautzenheiser. Do they have any ancestry member trees? How did they get this name? Well, there was one tree that Ancestry apparently has used that had 0 records in it, where they called this name Samuel Barnes, and perhaps their Samuel Barnes is not my Samuel Barnes. So only one member tree, no records to support it. So it's not looking good in my estimation. So then I started making a chart, which is, I realize is difficult to read, but I wanted to compare my Samuel Barnes to that other tree. That tree was written by S. Roney 61, and it's hard to read, but basically I have the census records that prove my Samuel Barnes lived in Pennsylvania, never went to Ohio or Nebraska where her Samuel Barnes went to. So I don't think there's any proof in anything I could find that shows that Magdalena is mine. Regrettably, I'd like to have Magdalena. It'd be fun to have this German question answered. So there she is again. Here is the author of that other tree. And I believe her Samuel Barnes, she's believes that he died in Nebraska and that he was born in Ohio. I'm not going to add Magdalena to my tree. So there's the euphoria down to the reality. Like, oh, I liked it, but it's not going to work. So that was a disappointment, and I'll tell you about other examples. But first of all, I just want to mention, if you don't have through lines showing up on your Ancestry DNA account, you've got to make sure you link your tree to your DNA results through settings. So make sure. I know in the early days of through lines, a lot of people just couldn't find through lines, and that's because they didn't have their tree linked to their results. And the other thing, you have to opt to see and be seen by DNA matches. So you can't play a privacy game here. Your tree is public or private but searchable. You have to build your tree back at least 4 generations. Through lines will show you how you may be related to a DNA match based on information from other family trees or your family tree, but it could be wrong. Through lines is available through 5 great-grandparent sets, and it doesn't prove your specific connection. It'll give you hints, and it can lead you down the road, but doesn't prove it. So then I started playing around with through lines more after my disappointment with Magdalena, and I found a fourth great grandfather, Caleb, who lived in Maine between 1755 and 1831. He was father to 12 children. And if you hover over your through line icon, this other screen comes up. But I couldn't figure out a way to do a screenshot of it, so I had to get my camera out and take a picture. And that's why Caleb here is a little askew. So his immigrant ancestors came from Wales sometime after 1690. So he's been here a long time. And voila, he's got 44 DNA matches between him and me, and these other people. And those matches go from very small amounts to very large. Now, people who have a large amount of DNA who match me, that would be my sister, for example. People who match me and match him at the 6 centimorgan level, that would be maybe the 7 generations away, which is great. It's really cool. But to learn more, I clicked on Caleb to see what about those matches. And I found out that he had remember, he has all those kids. So this line here goes on forever. The one that I am descended through is Hannah. And if I click on these boxes here, 21 matches and four matches, I can see who these people are who are related through Hannah to Caleb. I can see them, but voila, over here, there's brother John, brother to Hannah. They have 2 matches. Brother Dorcas, that's a female. Sister Dorcas had 2 matches. Brother James Jones had 11. So that's pretty cool that all these other people have matches to Caleb and they match me. So this is triangulation, it's called, to the max. So my line, as I said, showed 21 out of 43, and I want to evaluate this. So I want to click on a couple of these other people who are collateral to my Hannah. Okay, so I clicked on, I clicked on James Jones. That was one of the brothers. And here are all these people who, his children and his DNA matches. And here's one down under Irina, R-O. And remember, all these people are DNA matches to me as well as to Caleb. So, or to their most common ancestor. So here's one, Robert Bruce Osborne. He's listed as a 5th cousin once removed. We match at 8 centimorgans. I mean, that's astonishing. So I want to click on that. Click. Here he is, Robert Bruce Osborne, 5th to 8th cousin. Here's a different dot that's got to do with that line, a different colored dot. I don't have it memorized right now. He has a tree with 7,500 people. You know, that's eureka to somebody like me looking to see, well, who's our common ancestor? Let's see if you've got Caleb in there. They show me the beginning of his tree. Our match, our common ancestor doesn't happen until out here, but Ancestry goes ahead and identifies that our common ancestor is Caleb Jones and Peace Goddard. 8 centimorgans. We're hanging on there at 8 centimorgans. And, you know, an Ancestry was saying, let's get rid of these little segments. They don't mean anything. Not at the 8 centimorgan level, but I mean, this just goes to show that small centimorgans can get you a neat match. So I said, I want to click on another one, another cousin in those same lines, the Caleb Jones lines. So I clicked on this guy's because he had this funny little icon. I said, this guy's got a sense of humor. He has 19,000 people in his tree, a 7-person match, and Ancestry again identifies our common ancestor as Caleb Jones and Peace Goddard. I mean, isn't that amazing? Pretty excited about it. So, am I inclined, maybe if I find something in, let's go back. find something in these trees, like maybe Robert Bruce Osborne, wherever he's got Caleb Jones, way out here, maybe he's got Caleb Jones's father and I don't. Well, I'm going to pay a lot more attention to that because of this kind of evidence. And I might be tempted to put it in my tree. So here's another, oh, heck. Just one more example. Here was a Nancy Philbray who came up, 5th great grandmother. And I knew her son, well, I know of him for my 4th great grandfather. There are 17 DNA matches between this George Wilson and me. But voila, Ancestry is telling me by looking at other people's trees, other people's DNA, is telling me that there's another brother, likely brother out there with 13 DNA matches. That's considerable. And when I go over and I look at the panel over, Nancy Philbray may be the mother of George. Duh, yeah. Below are some of the information used to suggest this relationship. Among the member trees, there are 10 of them, and I can look at any of them and look at what they have to say about Nancy Philbray. And there are trees linked to DNA matches. There are 6 of them, and I can look at those too. So that is very nifty. So this is another one where I would be very tempted to see if there are pieces of information, if there are individuals that I could add to my own tree and extend my tree back beyond what was heretofore a brick wall. So True Lines looks at your trees, others' trees, your matches, and other people's matches. It's a way to get hints about potential ancestors, a way to confirm people in your tree, find clusters, and clusters are fun. And some of the matches can be small and powerful, but you have to evaluate. You can't just take those names and stick them in your tree because sometimes it's wrong. So I'm pretty sold on Ancestry DNA tools. For a $99 deal, you can get estimated relationships, use of filters, searching, shared matches, color coding dots you can color away, through lines, lots of family trees, and you can download the raw data. And remember, that's not the spit. You're not downloading that, you're downloading a text file. The disadvantages of Ancestry is there's no chromosome browser, and it doesn't allow use with genetic affairs. That's too bad, but I can get over it. It's got all these good things. Because Ancestry is a gateway to other riches. Here's the gateway. Look at that, opening up. Gateway, because you can download your data, your raw data, to MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, GEDmatch, and here's a new French one, Jeane. And you can fish in all these different ponds. So cool, for free, except for 23andMe. You can download your data into those databases, as I said, and you can use the data from Ancestry on things like GEDmatch and DNA Painter. And at some subsequent session, you'll probably talk about this stuff. So why do you do all this? Well, I always like to end with this slide because this stuff leads you to cousins, and they can be a genetic pot of gold. These are all my cousins I have found. Well, not all of them. These are some of them I found through genetic genealogy. Here's David Probert in Maine, and we got to have lunch. Cute little restaurant. Here's Terry in Maryland. He drove me all over the Delmarva Peninsula, showing me family plantations from our common ancestor. Here's Sandra, who's from New England. Her ancestry is from New England, as was mine. And you can confirm your family tree and meet and correspond with them and connect. Discovering and filling in your tree, it's fun. And I just think it's fun. This is a big puzzle. It's like playing, if you ever get stuck on Sudoku or whatever. This is a puzzle, but it's got to do with your family. So that's why I do it. So I want to say thank you and remind you that to consider this idea of attending the meeting tomorrow of the embryonic DNA SIG. And if I were you, if you were interested, I'd write President LGS Longmont Genealogical Society. That his name is Glenn. I forgot his last name, blank. At gmail.com. He's the president. If you're interested in hearing about that SIG coming up. Okay. Are there any questions? You can, so can somebody unmute the group?
I have a question, Jeane. So in my through lines, I get down to the 4th or 5th generation and everything's great. And then I get, say, to the last one, the 5th generation, and it's wrong. I mean, it's wrong. Even if you just looked at it as a stranger, you can see people can't be in England and in Ireland at the same time.
Yeah.
And they're having children in either place. So, and so I get to the evaluate button, and how do I get rid of that?
I don't know how to get rid of things. And I have wondered that myself, and I think it's a good question. And, you know, it's a relatively new feature. And I'm sure Ancestry might like having some feedback. You know, you can see a person who lives in England can't have also lived in Ireland at the same time. It's obvious.
Right.
But, and I'm sorry, I don't know.
Don't know. Okay. Thank you anyway. Great talk.
Or can you or Karen unmute everybody?
I think everybody has to unmute themselves. I've been trying, I have the cheap copy of Zoom, so I think everybody will have to unmute themselves, but so everybody just go ahead and unmute yourself, and if you have questions, I'll see what we have in the chat.
Okay.
When you find matches across different DNA, do you think they are all unique matches? From Mary Downling to everyone.
Mary, can you explain that question a little bit?
Yes, I skipped a word. I meant when you did that list that showed when you loaded them to the other systems and you got like 105 matches. Do you think that all of those matches are unique, or are some repeated on the other sites?
Well, it depends on if the person has tested at the other site.
True.
Too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're downloading your DNA, you're not downloading your matches. You're downloading your DNA,
Mm-hmm.
and your DNA will be put up against whatever DNA is in that second program. And so if you're looking for, okay, I know I matched Judy Stasic over here, but I can't find her in this other one, it's because, well, she never tested over there.
Right.
And she hasn't uploaded her data over there. So these are other people who are fishing in that pond, and it's still very worthy to do.
Can I have someone help me go to the bathroom? And could I have an email, please?
Diane, mute yourself.
I did.
Okay.
Anne's in the hospital, that's why.
Steve, do you have a question?
Yes. Do you know whether or not we can download the raw data from other cousins, et cetera, from Ancestry?
Oh, no.
Can't do it. I would have to ask them for it.
Yes.
If you
It's
ask them for
not a
it, they
casual
will
thing.
give it.
Okay.
It's one of those things that's they think is well, it is. It's their information, and you can't. Ancestry won't give it to you.
Privacy stuff. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is there any part of what I talked about that's the most difficult part for some of you, or that you've found some great discoveries on?
Well, my mind's blown. Shows how far I am into it. So well done.
I think what I found interesting is like you said, the ancestors that have one or two, and then they have a whole bunch of people that are related. They say you're related. So that makes me feel very secure that I have on that branch that it's correct.
Yeah, right. preponderance of evidence.
Yeah,
Right.
but you still have to prove everything by paper.
Right.
Right.
Goes back to hard work.
And most of it was proven by paper, but it just made me feel more secure that, you know, that these other people were also related or by DNA.
Yeah, well, you see, science wins again.
That's right, it does. We have been joined by my daughter. It's wonderful. Hi, Lauren.
Hi there.
Lauren was giving her a Zoom presentation herself this afternoon.
Yes. Yeah, I work for Kaiser in California, and I do counseling for the employees. So we were talking about burnout for the hospitals here because we're in a COVID hotspot. So
it's a tough situation.
But my mom has taught me a lot about genealogy, so I appreciate it.
I wonder if there's any estimate of those that they say are matches that really truly aren't, or there's no way you could know.
There are big papers written about it. And Blaine Bettinger is a guru in genealogy, and he's written papers to say these little matches are bogus, and he talks about how many of them should be thrown away. And then you have some other luminaries like Roberta Estes now writing about little matches and how powerful they are. And some of us are lamenting that Ancestry threw away some of our little matches, even though it would shove us from 80,000 matches to 90,000. But it's fun to work with.
I've heard them say that if it's 25 centimorgans, they're probably related to you. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a good match.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't the cutoff about 20 centimorgans?
20 centimorgans for shared matches.
For shared matches for ancestry?
For shared matches, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the problem is, without going into Blaine, that's basically the probability of how much, what's the probability that you have better probability that the match is good rather than being statistical. And, you know, that's a question that different people can have different opinions.
Getting into statistics. There's a lot of science here. So any other questions about the functionality that I talked about?
Jeane, this is Julie. You asked earlier, what did I find particularly helpful or interesting? And I found how to connect to through lines, because I didn't understand why I never saw it. So now I know how to do that. And all your little tips and tricks about the dots and the grouping, the clustering and all that. That's all some fun stuff to get into. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It is fun. I think, you know, some of this gets so serious, and then if you can go color, maybe it's good therapy.
Would be a relief, yeah.
I like how you can assign the colors to the different grandparents and through lines.
Yeah. You can just imagine yourself sitting at a desk with 80,000 pieces of paper, and they're all your matches. You want to start to make a system out of it.
And I keep looking for, I'm looking for my paternal side, because I already know a lot about my maternal side. And when I see these loads and loads of matches, each time I look at it, I go, oh, which ones are paternal, which ones are maternal? And now I see there's a way to make a note.
Yeah.
So I love that. I won't have to keep repeating, looking again and again, or printing it out and writing notes on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of an FYI, Ancestry says if you put your picture on up on Ancestry, they're more likely to contact you.
Yeah, on your profile.
Yes, on your profile.
So two things, not only your picture, but put your location if you want to appear on that map.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about the mail function at Ancestry. it's just represented by a little tiny envelope in the upper right-hand corner. And a lot of people don't even look at it, don't even realize they've got a message from somebody. And then you write people and they never respond. And it's one of the most frustrating things, I think, for a lot of us when people don't respond. And I have taken to sometimes sleuthing, trying to find a person outside of the ancestry system and get their attention. And one useful way I found to do that is sometimes their username, they're using it also on Facebook. And so I'll go look for Facebook for that individual. And I had this wonderful example once where I wrote somebody a private message on Facebook. And I asked them, are you so-and-so on Ancestry? And they're, yes, I am. And they were surprised that someone was trying to reach them. So anyhow, so that adds a little excitement to the job of being a genealogist, of being a sleuth.
That's a great idea. I haven't thought of that one. Well, if there's, let me see, I don't have any more questions in the chat.
Okay.
Are there any more? Speak up now. Well, I'm glad you could all join us, and thank you, Jeane, for doing this for us.
Welcome.
This was great.
Yeah.
So,
Nice work, Jeane.
Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
Very nice and a
Very
good
nice.
presentation.
we will be putting all our
presentation.
SIGs on our website. So if you want to join in, our SIGs are going to be open to anybody. They're not, I mean, we don't always have as a good a speaker as Jeane, but you're welcome to come and join us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody have a good night then.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Mhm.